Week 15 is over, and now we have to find out, do we have any bullets left to head to the semifinals? Of course, a stressful week here trying to survive teams in the world of best ball where you get eliminated in these pods. 15 people, 12 people, depending on the site out there, or 16 people, I forget what it is. Either way, there's a lot of people competing for these spots, and it's a joy to get anything through, certainly a frustration point to not get as many as you feel like you deserve through. We're going to talk about it today. This is your best ball semifinals preview / review of the first round here. Let's get into it. And as always, I'd like to start the soliloquy up top to kind of establish, I think, either what I'm thinking, what we're all thinking about the season, about what's going on right now. I think we have to talk about pod luck up top because this is something where I have seen, some of the complaining on social media start to pop up into my feed. People saying about how they, feel like they got ripped off. Their teams were so good. Their teams were crushing. And then they ran into a pod where they had stacks that were similar. And then people were saying, oh, the random number generators are pushing the same stacks together. And it becomes conspiracy mode. And in reality, what people are just finding out, especially if this is your first year doing this. And again, this is my second year really maxing out everything. Fourth year of doing some amount of entries. So I'm familiar with the process and really got to see firsthand like what it feels like to kind of go through and know you have put, a couple mortgage payments on what this is. Maybe the equivalent for some people of a small car payment, a shitty car payment. That's sort of, or rather car purchase in terms of what you're putting in entries. And this is just how it goes. Like, I agree if you want to make changes to it, if you want to try to revise things, the wild card format that I thought DraftKings had for the rounds going into the playoffs was pretty good, where top scorers in over a certain threshold, they all made the playoffs. That felt really good. That said, though, I had 29 entries on DraftKings, and I don't want to spoil it, but I didn't get 29 entries across. Like, I had those extra entries in. I ultimately ended up getting wiped out the same way. So I think what people are running into is like not building teams for that playoff format quite as much, not building teams that have that weekly upside that we strive for in the show. That's why we take the hits on zero RB teams here, is because you're going to perform less in the regular season. You're not going to have as many top 10,000 advancers, but you do have the upside at those positions. You also have the zero RB upside as well for late running backs. So I think what people are seeing here is definitely something that's jarring if you are not advancing as many as you thought, but also like this is kind of a feature and not a bug is what I would say about it. And I hate saying that phrase because obviously people's disappointment is going to be relative to whatever the situation is. But I think that for best ball, like this is just how it goes. It is a survival of the fittest. It is a war of attrition. That's why we say that here, where we build sick teams all year, or at least ones that I believe are sick, or try to make sick as best we can. And ultimately, you get your injuries, you get your bad luck. Tyreek Hill goes out this week. Like I had a couple teams that were potential monsters that lost Tyreek. So I think that and I'm sure a lot of people as well, he had a 35% advance rate. It's going to happen. But I think you have to really calibrate your expectations. And if you got anything through, you just have to be grateful for it. And I also will say for myself personally, honestly, part of the reason I didn't tweet about my advance rates or whatever, so I want you guys to tune in the show. I want you to see the thumbnail. I want you to do the whole thing. I also just don't think there's anything worth celebrating yet. And I said this last year too, where the advance rate, people love to victory lap the advance rate. I got 100 out of 150 in. Look at me. And then what happens? They run into this week. Oh, I advanced 5. And that'd be a great run out if you advance 5 into the semifinals. So if you are one of those people that got lucky, I know the Achievers, the guy who's sometimes in the Splash Play community, I know we engage sometimes on Twitter. I saw you had 10 or 9 going into the semifinals. Like, kudos to you, man. That's fantastic. That said, like ultimately, it only takes that one. And if you have any live, it's more than a lot of sharp people out there who've been tweeting their takes all offseason have. So that's what I would say for all you guys out there is that, number one, you fucking haven't won anything. I feel like it's an NFL team where you're celebrating in the AFC title game. It's like, no, we have to finish the job. You need your team to finish this job. What you're doing right now, what that team is doing for you right now, just doesn't matter. What matters is what happens at the end of it. And even then, I made the finals last year in both sites, on DraftKings and on Underdog. And you know what happened? Fucking Buffalo and Cincinnati got canceled. So you just don't know what's going to come up. And I think that's the main thing here is like, don't pat yourself in the back too much now. Don't celebrate too much because there's still work to be done. There's still a lot of luck that needs to be had. And I think that's my rallying cry for you out there. Like, don't lock anything in yet. Don't start spending the money before you have it. Because for the variability of it all, man, the war of attrition of it all is going to be brutal. And then once you get to that 440-person finals or whatever it is, it's not going to be any easier. Just doesn't get any easier. So just keep that in mind. Shout out to the chat. As always, appreciate you guys being here. Drew Lock season has arrived. I do have to say, if there's one thing that I could point to is like, I feel like I've had some of the worst run bad this year of my entire DFS career, where I mentioned earlier in the year was very close, knocking to the door, some showdowns, had ones that were hovering around first place late into the game. Then some weird things happen, like unexpected turnovers, penalties causing extended drives late in the game, stuff like that. I feel like I may have missed my window to win one of the big showdowns this year. Like I was worried about that. You only get so many shots to finish first in tournaments throughout the course of a DFS season. But I think Drew Lock yesterday, being a player who can make a winning lineup and look adequate, I played him in a lot of lineups yesterday, didn't quite have the right nuts, but it was a 2v2 away from the first place finish, which kind of sucked. Didn't have Metcalf. I think I had Elliott and something else. Point being, though, like, I think if there's anything that's going to turn my year around, it's just Drew Lock going out there as a future. He's going to be a dad soon. Drew Lock finally reaching his apex, reaching his mountain of what he can be. I think that's the thing that I needed. So I'm hoping that this readjusts my run bad for the year, where I think we've gotten a lot of takes right in the show. I've got a lot of takes right in my lineup builds, and it just hasn't come together. So maybe Drew Lock is the thing I need. I'm hoping so. Shout out Copper Prices. I know had a nice advance rate as well. Saw it on Twitter. Shout out to him, of course, very sharp drafter. Rob, appreciate him being here. Appreciate everybody as well who got the new memberships from our pal Jordan Klein, producer over at Stochastic yesterday. Of course, you guys will be on the credits today. Brand new credits. Actually redid the design in Canva. So I'll have some fun coming up here. Drew Lock puts that shit on. He does put that shit on indeed. He played well within himself. I think the one thing that sucks is like they don't let him run. I realized that after doing the video yesterday. He's only run once per game when he's played this year, which kind of eliminates one of the key parts of what makes Drew Lock the most compelling player, I think, or has historically made him a compelling player to me. That said, like 200 plus yards, beating the Eagles on a final drive, a dime to JSN. So hard to ignore what he did yesterday, but he definitely, like, that wasn't the fantasy upside I want to see, scoring 12 points on DK. But let's look at week 15 here. And I think instead of looking at the season long, we're just going to look at the guys that killed everybody's lineups this week or helped them out a lot and what it means for moving forward. So Christian McCaffrey is the big one. Christian McCaffrey, I think for this week, definitely. And Rob dropping his got to BBM entries. If you guys want to drop your little victory laps and all that in here, little victory laps, I'm not saying that pejoratively. If you want to drop your big old victory laps, or you want to drop those big veiny victory laps in chat, please feel free to do it. Of course, we'll get into that more as we get into my lineups. But let's talk about the top performing players, because I think this will show you guys where things either went right or went wrong for you this week. Christian McCaffrey, 36.7 points. I think what we're seeing here is certainly so what he did for himself was really put the Tyreek teams, the Justin Jefferson teams, the Jamar Chase teams. I think a lot of those first-round receiver teams put him really in a tough spot where I think the only guy who was close in that first round, and correct me if I'm wrong, chat, and the only guy who scored really meaningfully from the first rounders, and actually it wasn't even a first rounder. I think Amon-Ra was a cuss first rounder. He's the only one that got close. So this is a week where Christian McCaffrey did put it down enough where the big Lennies of the world can come in and go, Christian McCaffrey dropped the big load on you. Okay, he did by doing what he's supposed to do against the Cardinals, the only team that he can break 30 points against. But he did do it again. The downside, though, James Cook here, 34.1, 36.7. James Cook, I think, is a lot more valuable than Christian McCaffrey because you're still able to load up at receiver, still able to load up at other positions, still able to do some different things, and you're not with the chalk. Whereas certainly the Cook advance rate is going to be high. The McCaffrey advance rate, though, is going to be a lot of teams that I think are built in kind of a binary kind of way, a missionary, a chalky kind of way, because those are the people that draft CMC the most. So I would say for McCaffrey teams, obviously he's live once again to put up a decent spot. Baltimore, a tough matchup, but one where you do probably need him to get the ball in more creative ways. If McCaffrey fails this week, though, I think that is going to be really tough for a lot of teams. So that's the good news with McCaffrey. And then the bad news for McCaffrey as well, or the good news if you're going against McCaffrey, the good news as well if you're going against McCaffrey is that you got James Cook here putting up 34. So I think that speaks to what we're talking about here, where the big Lennies of the world, you could be right. Like Christian McCaffrey went off. He put up 36.7 points, but I'd rather have James Cook's 34.1. And that's how I'm always going to feel about it. And I think that's how it felt this week. So I could tell you that. Jared Goff came in number 3, 31 points. A lot of Detroit stacks advancing this week. I had a lot of Amon-Ra, St. Brown, and Jared Goff this week. And even with that, could not overcome some of the injuries and some of the down positions. Losing Tyreek again, losing Olave as well. I had one lineup with no Tyreek, no Olave, and that was very hard. I think actually might have been no Tyreek, no Olave, and no Christian Watson. So that is when a zero RB portfolio, a robust wide receiver portfolio, can go south. And that certainly was the case for me in that one. But obviously, Jared Goff helped a lot of teams out. I advanced a few of them. We'll look at them in a moment. Baker Mayfield, number 4. So Baker Mayfield, big week for him. Again, this is what we talked about. And I think this is one thing with the Spags rankings where I know our guy Gamblestein was certainly rebelling against Baker Mayfield, frequently being in the top 5 all year, being in the top 10 of my QB rankings because of the opportunity it represented. And of course, my QB rankings weren't like, I think Baker's a top 10 QB. It is a data point if you missed those videos early in the year. But basically, I rolled up data point that reflected his EPA metrics, his dropbacks per game, how well he's doing in different situations. And Baker was always there. And I think it spoke more so to Baker as like a stack guy, as a guy that can get there in terms of what his overall team is doing. But I think what he put up this week, that's why he was in those rankings every week, is because he's dropping back so many times. He's a little more effective than he seems. He runs a little bit more than he seems. Obviously, had the outlier passing touchdown day, but that was always in the bag for him this year, surprisingly. And I think Baker Mayfield, definitely one of the biggest steals. You could see here too, if you didn't go elite QB, you had Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield, Brock Purdy, all of these guys going after like 120 in drafts. So I think a 3 QB build would have worked. Getting the right 2 QBs in a build would have worked. But I don't think elite QB really helped you out this week. Josh Allen, really tough week for him. I think under 16 points. Jalen Hurts, you can see here, he got to 24 half-point PPR points, but not enough to beat out a lot of these QBs. So that's where the thesis that we talked about all year long is like elite QB is going to help you advance, going to prop up that average scoring rate over the course of a year. But when you get to the playoffs, all bets are off. Anybody can win. And Jared Goff is the winner this week, followed by Baker Mayfield. So 2 statuesque QBs, 2 guys that don't run very much, even though Baker does run a shy of 5 times a game. But 2 guys that I think you wouldn't have expected, along with Aiden O'Connell, who probably didn't even get drafted. Those guys were not expected to be in this mix, and they beat out Jalen Hurts, beat out Josh Allen, beat out Patrick Mahomes. That's where the QB stuff comes into play. Brock Purdy, number 6, Aiden O'Connell, number 5. Again, Aiden O'Connell not drafted. Brock, now the MVP favorite. Don't think he should be, but he is the MVP favorite. Tyreek going out. Certainly probably submarine, my dark horse. But we'll see what happens. Dallas versus Miami on Sunday. Going to be a very important game for best ball, and also one, I think, for both Dak and Tyreek to make their MVP case down the home stretch. Raiders D. Wow. So 2 defenses were the highest scores. Obviously, it doesn't matter for best ball, but kind of insane to see that in the top 10. Jalen Hurts, Sam Laporta. Sam Laporta, definitely a huge part of my portfolio to help me advance. I feel very good about that. Obviously, the downside is if you advanced off Laporta, we know he's got a 5-point game in his bag, as much as he does have this 23.6-point game. So I would say Laporta tight end teams, very fragile, but much in the same way like an Evan Ingram team was fragile last year, a Kittle team was fragile last year. You got to hope, I think, you have a second tight end with big upside. And I know for me, I have a few Andrews Laporta teams, or I think at least one Andrews Laporta team that's going on. Really wish Andrews were in the mix, because I think that's the kind of player that would be a good way to kind of balance out, where you could ping pong back Laporta, Andrews, Laporta big weeks. Worry about Laporta here. The matchup for Laporta coming up, though. Where's Detroit playing this week? I forget. Playing at Minnesota this week, another dome spot. Minnesota definitely blitzes at a high rate, so that does open up some tight end targets, but you could also see Laporta kept in the block a little bit more. He is definitely the fragile piece I worry about. Obviously, Addison, you would say the same thing as well. These 2 rookies, I think, are the ones you really worry about if they got you to the dance, because I just don't see them repeating those games next week. But certainly, weirder things have happened, but not the most likely. All right. Oh yeah. Check BBM. Some Aiden O'Connell was drafted. I'm sure he was drafted. I don't think he's still alive in the playoffs for very many teams, but I could be wrong. Obviously I've not looked that deeply into it. Ty Chandler, number 13. This is one that kicks me in the nuts too. We're passing Jahmyr Gibbs. Obviously, Jahmyr Gibbs, very good play. Certainly putting some distance between him and David Montgomery. Ty Chandler, though, is one that pisses me off a little bit, because as you guys might recall, a little more team Dwayne McBride thought that the rookie coming in had some juice, and what he showed in college definitely was a great power back. Thought that was a nice compliment, potentially, what Alexander Madison did. And said Ty Chandler came out and just looked like a much better version of Alexander Madison, got the workload, fully consolidated the workload as well. So Ty Chandler is a guy I definitely am afraid of heading into the playoffs. The good news is he's facing Detroit. Detroit certainly can throw a lot on Minnesota if they go that way. Indoor game as well for Detroit, so maybe you can see the passing offense have its full efficacy, as we do see a little bit more in indoor games for Jared Goff. For Ty Chandler, though, the fact you got one advance rate worthy game of him as a 17th round pick, 18th round pick, 20th round pick on DraftKings in some drafts. He definitely did the work for you. He paid off his price tag if you advance them in. But now I personally hope that he falls apart, because I have no shares and I didn't ever want anything to do with him. So that's how that went. Gardner Minshew in 14. Again, late QBs, man. We are now talking. This is 1, 2. We can count Jalen Hurts, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 QBs who finished ahead of Josh Allen and ahead of Patrick Mahomes. Even Joe Flacco finished ahead of Josh Allen. Joe Flacco finished ahead of Lamar Jackson. So I think that is where the elite QB stuff, obviously, again, the floor important for next year, though. I would say if we do have these outlier packs where there's guys going in the 3rd round, even if they're Anthony Richardson, I think you have to be a little more mindful of that, because it just caps your upside a little bit more in terms of getting multiple QBs for a lot cheaper who have the similar upside. QB is the one position where you can draft late and really have that big upside. Obviously, we've seen it. Kyron Williams, Puka Nacua, guys like that, other guys who aren't Rams, who've had outlier days at other positions going late. But still, QB is the one where there's a floor, because the guy's dropping back and running an offense. If the offense is just the barest minimum successful, or even more than successful, that's where you can see any QB beat any QB in a given week. And I think that's something that people definitely missed during the draft process this year. Kyron, Nick Mullins. And then, of course, we know the guys who didn't make it through. The Tyreek's definitely not going to be good. Olave not going to be good. Nito Olave this week. Purple Yoshi saying snuck him through on some of my best ball teams. Definitely not practicing already for Olave, but obviously it's early in the week. We'll see how that goes. QBs overall for week 15, Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield, Aiden O'Connell, Brock Purdy, Jalen Hurts, Gardner Minshew, Derek Carr, Jake Browning, Joe Flacco. So we are seeing, all right, out of terms of guys that didn't get drafted basically, or were undrafted or close to undrafted, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of the top 10, 6 of the top 11, 7 of the top 13 QBs in week 15 were guys who weren't even drafted in most drafts. So definitely interesting thing to see. This is not the usual, I would say, for QB play. Obviously, like last year, we saw that Daniel Jones' breakout a little bit more. Some of the late guys, Joe Burrow was a guy who carried me through a lot of rounds. Definitely a different configuration this year, but the good news is like the flattening out means that if you do have any of these QBs left, like I have, I think 2 Russell Wilson teams, I would say like if you have any QB left, they're all live to be in the hunt, but obviously you have to worry about Buffalo, big implied total this week coming up against the Chargers, an 11-point favorite heading into LA. Josh Allen revenge game is certainly on the menu. So if you did sneak Josh Allen through, I think you have to feel pretty good about that because these are the guys he has to beat, guys who didn't even have a job in August, is how it's going to go. Top running backs for week 15. Christian McCaffrey, again, number 1. James Cook, number 2. Not a big gap there. Jahmyr Gibbs, number 3. Ty Chandler, number 4. Rashad White, number 5. Kyron, 6. Kenneth Walker had the big week. Surprisingly, had more of a role this week after he was leading, Zach Charbonnet was leading the backfield last week. Charbonnet still had some work. Kenneth Walker, though, more involved in the pass game last week, keeps that role this week as well. Big game for Kenneth Walker, definitely a surprise game, but he might have killed your teams enough down the stretch that there might not be a lot of Kenneth Walker floating around at this point. Devin Singletary at 8. Singletary, very happy to see him getting here. He was a nice 0 RB play that helped me, I think, advance one team. Raheem Mostert at number 9. Clyde Edwards-Helaire at number 10 is a shocker. I almost snuck in a Clyde Edwards-Helaire team, which would have felt really good because my other backs were basically all dead besides one, but not enough to get there for me. But CEH, Pacheco's banged up. Obviously, the role is definitely a split backfield with McKinnon. But CEH, if you're sneaking him in as a 18th round pick, 20th round pick on DraftKings, I think there's a shot as long as Pacheco stays out. So CEH live once again. And if that doesn't sum up best ball, I don't know what does. James Conner, number 11, a guy that also helped me in some teams that we'll see in a moment. But that feels pretty good for sure. If you have Conner and he finally pays off. Wide receivers, Jordan Addison, number 1. So it's interesting to see because this actually shouldn't have rewarded like 0 RB teams too much because there weren't a lot of outlier players at receiver this week. We didn't have a single 30-point game, not even anybody over 25 points in half-point PPR. Jordan Addison, number 1 of the week. Jalen Waddle, of course. Teams that advanced him certainly going to be in a tough spot if Tyreek is coming back in, and it does seem like Tyreek is going to be coming back in against Dallas this week. Waddle, though, came through in a big spot. Obviously going to have a little more confidence, you would think, heading into the next game. Maybe both he and Tyreek get there, but I think if you advance Waddle, feels a little precarious for sure. Terry McLaurin, number 3. Terry McLaurin, we talked about, I said he was going to have a bounce back game this week. I didn't quite expect it to be that much of one, but you can't go from a 0 the last time, then they have the bye week. Like, you had to know they were going to get Terry McLaurin involved. So McLaurin, if you got him left, great. I had a lot of him heading into the season. He did nothing all year, did not advance me many teams. So McLaurin, dead to me, but I'm sure alive for some people out there. T. Higgins, Deebo Samuel, Trey Tucker is number 6 on the week. So another undrafted receiver, but does speak to, again, just how volatile week 17, week 16, week 15 can be. Josh Palmer at 7. Amon-Ra at 8 just gave you a nice floor play so you compete against all these guys. I think that's why Amon-Ra can have a very high advance rate. Cooper Kupp team's had a hard time surviving the regular season, but he's still in the hunt. And Amari Cooper at number 10. Amari Cooper at number 10, very happy to see that. I think he's in one of my teams that made it through. Curtis Samuel, though, not that far behind. Devontae, not that far behind. Definitely a flat wide receiver week. So this is a week where if we have one wide receiver really break out, like you're going to see a lot of teams pull away from the pack because I think you can find a lot of teams that advance different wide receiver configurations because just nobody was an outlier that drove success. The guys who drove success this week were McCaffrey, James Cook, and Laporta, I think, are the big 3 there. I might be missing somebody amidst that hunt. Kyron to a lesser extent, but if you had Kyron, you're already kind of paved with gold anyway from getting him so late. But I think those are the 3 that really mattered. So at wide receiver, any of these guys can break out in this week, and that certainly is going to be a big thing that gets you through to the next round. Tight ends, look at this real fast, and we'll get to the odds for week 7 or week 16 coming up here. Keep thinking about week 17. Can't put the cart ahead of the horse. Got 2 more to go. Laporta, David Njoku, Isaiah Likely, Hunter Henry. So really all late tight ends, the elite tight ends not coming through this year, even a little bit. Of course, Andrews being out, Kelsey being too love struck to ever be good in a game again. He was too busy preparing for Taylor Swift's birthday for the lavish events that they had. So he did not even get in the top 10. What a bust is Travis Kelsey. Like, I know he had a couple good games early in the year, but geez, that was really bad draft capital to use, especially if you took him with Mahomes. Likely Henry, Tucker Kraft gets in. Bums me out because this would have been a Musgrave day for sure, but Tucker Kraft gets it instead. Elijah Higgins, Trey McBride, Michael Mayer, Juwan Johnson, Cole Kmet. Random Experts, I think, is talking about streams that are not this one. but yes, I mean, all those idiots who drafted Justin Jefferson over CMC, I don't know. You drafted a running back over CMC. I agree that maybe deserves some flogging, but you're always better off playing the outcome that fades somebody, I think, for the most part, especially if people are walking them in as a player that's going to give you production. So I don't know. I know I tend to push back on all this stuff, but I really wouldn't go like, oh, the people who didn't draft CMC are idiots. Like, 'cause I didn't draft CMC. And the logic is you go with a wide receiver there. You maybe take a running back later. So I think it still makes sense. It's just the outcome's the outcome. So that's how that goes. NFL. Let's look at NFL odds for the week. So Rams, New Orleans, going to be not the highest total game, but definitely has a little more juice to it than I would have thought, actually. 45 implied points in this one. The totals for each team, and I'll try to make this fast, but I think it's important to look at the odds right now. 24.5 applied points with the Rams, 20.5 for New Orleans. A tough defense for New Orleans for sure. The run game a little bit softer, so Kyren Williams team certainly live. Cup team certainly live. Puka team certainly live. And even Alvin Kamara teams, I would say live, because I think there are a few floating around out there that I have, which I'm certainly hoping for. Pittsburgh, Cincinnati does look pretty ugly on paper. Only 17.5 implied points for Pittsburgh, 20 for Cincinnati. Buffalo, 26.8 implied points, though, against the Chargers. So a pretty big favorite here, 11-point favorites, as we mentioned, going into LA. LA's defense, not very good. LA also, we'll see if they get a little bit of a dead cat bounce with a change in head coach. But this is one of those things where they definitely felt like 1-2-3 Cancun last week. They were not full effort. I certainly thought Brandon Staley was going to get fired watching that game. He does get fired the next day. We'll see if they have an Antonio Pierce kind of jump back, but I don't think so for the Chargers. I think they're ready to go. And I think it's also possible you don't see Keenan Allen in this game, don't see Eckler. So Chargers lineups could definitely be struggling. But if they do play, like if Keenan Allen plays, definitely going to be a good game script to go against Buffalo here, because Buffalo, 11-point favorite on the road, even though LA is not the biggest home field advantage. I'm sure going to be a ton of Buffalo fans there. But man, Buffalo could really go big, and James Cook is definitely a risk to do it again this week. But so is Diggs, so is Gabe Davis. Bills teams could put up a lot of points this week and put them up very easily. So I would watch out for Bills teams if you have them. Other teams to note here, Green Bay, 20.8 implied points. Carolina, 15.8, so nothing too sexy there. Detroit, 25 implied points, so a little bit less than we want to see. Going against Minnesota's 22 implied points. Kind of feel like this game could skew a little bit more defensive, but I want to believe Detroit being indoors being the main thing. I would say Goff stacks definitely live this week, but Goff stacks also, I would say, probably the most volatile stacks you can have, because he does handle pressure well, only a 33% pressure rate at a negative 0.55 EPA, which is a little bit worse than league average, or a little bit worse than we want to see. Good QBs are about a negative 0.3 or higher in terms of pressure EPA, but Goff at negative 0.55 definitely comes with some risk there. But I would say for Goff, because of how much he advanced, I'm worried less for the Amon-Ra St. Brown part of it than I am the Goff part of it, where Goff can have a bad day. It took him throwing, 5 touchdowns in that game to be an outlier player. He doesn't run enough. If he doesn't really get there in the pass game, it's going to be tough. So Goff stacks could either have a big day if Minnesota pulls their weight, or it could be a disaster if Minnesota's defense pulls their weight. And I think that's definitely going to be a risky spot and a volatile spot this weekend. Indianapolis gets 23 implied points against Atlanta. Atlanta starting Taylor Heineke with 21.5 implied points. I do have a Ritter team, I believe, that's advancing, so that's not great for me. Arthur Smith doesn't know what he's doing. He's trying to save his job. Hopefully he does not. But definitely Atlanta is live to have some good plays, because Indianapolis gives up a lot of explosive plays. Has been one of the highest rate in the pass game all year long. Seattle, 22.5 implied points. Tennessee, 20. That might be a Drew Lock line. No, favorites on the road. I think that's probably a Geno line. Geno was very close to playing last night. It does seem like you would expect him to go here. 22.5 implied points against Tennessee. Tennessee, as we talk about, really limp pass defense certainly can be taken advantage of. Is Geno with a groin injury the guy to do it? I don't know. The implied total doesn't speak to this being a particularly high-scoring game, but we'll see if it moves up throughout the week. But 22.5 against Tennessee's defense does kind of scream Tennessee making it ugly for both sides of the equation. Cleveland, 20 implied points. Houston, 22.5. CJ Stroud, I think CJ Stroud has to be back in for this to be in line for Houston to be getting 22.5 implied points. So if you survived a Stroud stack, I think I expect him to be back in and out of the concussion protocol this week. Matchup against Cleveland, certainly not good, but Cleveland dropping back a little bit more. You're going to see Stroud probably have a little bit less efficacy dropping back, but he's got to throw against Cleveland. Like, that's how you beat Cleveland, is being aggressive and playing downfield. So Stroud, if you got him in, still alive, I would say, even though definitely not a high implied total, but higher than you would think going against Cleveland. Washington, 17.5 implied points. Jets, 20.5. So the Jets not even expected to get that boost against the Commanders that we know gives up production to everybody. I would say Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, certainly more live. Garrett Wilson, an incredibly squeaky wheel heading into week 17. So heading into week 16, excuse me. So if you snuck him in, I would say Garrett Wilson against Washington feels like a pretty good play to have. But definitely for the Jets, 20.5 implied points. Relatively high for the Jets, so I guess that's a good sign, but hard to expect them to have the same success against the Commanders that even a Tommy DeVito had, is based on how they're going to do. Let's see. Jacksonville, 21 implied points. Tampa Bay, 22. Seems like a little more defensively minded matchup. Don't expect Baker to have an outlier day like that one again, though he is going to have to drop back a lot, knowing Jacksonville can put up a lot of points. Arizona, 20 implied points against Chicago's 24.5. Roschon Johnson led the backfield last week, guys. Obviously, you could beat Arizona through the air. You could beat them through the ground. You could beat them anywhere you want to beat them. Chicago, 24.5 implied points is very high. I really wanted to sneak through a field stack. Did not get there. Finished in third and BBM with a Fields Goff team, which fucking sucked. Fields is live to destroy the tournament this week, is what I would say. That'd be my one thing I'll put into the universe, like Fields and more. And then maybe Roschon, if he can consolidate the backfield a little bit more than he even did this past week. I think those are the guys to really watch out for here. But Fields with more and Kmet, I think those are really an interesting spots this week because Arizona can't defend shit, and Chicago is implied for way more points than they're usually getting with 24.5 here. Hopefully the weather will be okay in Chicago. Dallas, 25 implied points. Miami, 26.5. So competitive game here with high totals. Definitely not the highest totals we normally see for Dallas and Miami, but this is the game. If I did not target week 16 games all year, as we talked about during best ball drafts. I look at week 17, so I didn't really have Dallas, Miami on the radar. This is a really important game. This is the one where Tyreek didn't advance very much. Obviously, him being back in, going against Dallas, and Dallas, is going to put up points. And Miami, or, we assumed, obviously they didn't against Buffalo, but we assume they're going to put up points. Miami as well, you assume they're going to put up points. I think this game is the key one of the week. Like, this is the one to watch out for. This is the big one. And this is the one, too, where it's going to either advance a lot of teams or it's going to sink a lot of teams, or sink teams even more so. So Dallas, Miami, the most important game by a pretty wide margin. 2 is not going to put up 40 points. That's random expert is really random esports rather. I appreciate you being here, friend. Your takes are killing me. Tua would have to throw for 8 touchdowns. I don't think it's going to happen, but I appreciate the optimism for Tua. New England, Denver, 6.5 point dogs in Denver are New England. Denver, I think this is a game where we expect the defense to have a little more success, even though Denver, as I've talked about all year, what happened, guys? Jared Goff lit up Denver. It's almost like Denver's a paper tiger defense, and people have started to talk themselves into being good, and they're absolutely not. The thing I've been saying for fucking 6 weeks now. But that felt good over the weekend as well. So New England, maybe they can get there. Obviously, your Bailey Zappi sacks aren't doing much. I have some Devontae Parker, though, so maybe they can get there versus Denver. Vegas, 15.3 implied points. Kansas City, 25.8. So an absolute destruction expected on Christmas Day for Kansas City here. Does feel good if Pacheco gets back in. Obviously, if you consolidate that backfield again, has a little more time to get healthy as well this week. But if CEH is in, if McKinnon is in, those guys are live. And maybe you finally see an outlier Kelsey day when it doesn't matter and nobody's advancing him. But Kansas City, Vegas, Kansas City, huge favorites here. So got to expect some big scoring from Kansas City Chiefs in this game. And certainly, Rashee Rice has been the guy lately, so he could have an outlier day as well, even though I would try to think that, or I would tend to think that running backs and tight ends can be the more explosive players here. Giants, Philly. Philly, of course, lock in your Boston Scott touchdowns. Poor Rashad Penny couldn't even get active in a revenge game yesterday, so Boston Scott fucking just ruining everything. But 26.8 implied points for Philly. Philly coming off another loss. Philly needs to win these games out to make sure to keep Dallas at bay because they're basically tied with Dallas right now. Dallas' schedule a lot tougher down the stretch than Philly's is. But Philly, the good news for Philly, if you have Jalen Hurts, if you have A.J. Brown, if you have Devontae Smith, if you have DeAndre Swift even, these guys are all going to be very live. There's a real concern that with how they're pulling ahead, they might just have the bye and not need to play guys against Arizona. Now I think they have to play against Arizona and they have to play full go against the Giants. So risk point is that they can put up a lot of points and really dust them, especially. They're going to be angry coming off another loss here. Obviously, one they shouldn't have lost yesterday against Seattle. So I'd say for Philly, like the upside is they're going to probably really hammer the Giants and hurt them in a meaningful way. The bad news is that Philly is also going to probably put up a lot of points, and then maybe you see starters pulled at some point. If the Giants keep it competitive, though, Philly going to be full go, and Philly needs a win, and needs to dominate a little bit here. So Eagles, watch out for them if they're in your pod. Baltimore, San Francisco, last game of Christmas Day. Defensively minded matchup here with only 20.3 implied points for Baltimore, 25.8 for San Francisco. So Niners still a pretty good implied total, even go against a tough Ravens defense. Ravens a little bit less so against a tough Niners defense. All the teams are live here, but I kind of feel like this is a McCaffrey rubber meeting the road spot a little bit. If McCaffrey's been carrying your ass, hope it goes well. Hope it goes well for you. I don't at all. Fading all SF pieces, what could go wrong? This is where they're due for their comeuppance, this kind of matchup against Baltimore. And also, too, this is a really important one because if Niners pieces get through by, they beat Baltimore and they have a good day and you get Niners guys into the finals at a meaningful clip, it's going to be really tough because the Niners play in week 17, the Washington Commanders. So I think as a field, you should kind of be rooting against the Niners. Definitely be rooting against Christian McCaffrey because you don't want that in week 17 to be a pretty high volume. And even if you do have McCaffrey, you almost want the Niners to just barely eke by because you don't want a lot of McCaffrey in the finals. So it's just going to fuck up the entire thing. So I would say a really key matchup is the last one on the slate. All right, let's look at my teams. Before we do that, though, guys, you know the deal here. Before I publicly shame myself or empower myself, please subscribe down below. Splash Play in the march to 4K subs now, 5K subs, 10K subs, 1,000,000K subs. Who knows what the ceiling is here on Splash Play as long as I keep showing up and doing the work. And honestly, I really do appreciate you guys. You've been smashing the like button. You've been subscribing at a higher rate. We're getting over 100 likes on videos pretty regularly now, which is pretty crazy for a smallish channel like we have. So let's keep doing it, guys. Really means a lot to me here because, again, this is my job now. Splash Play is just my job along with Probably and what we're trying to figure out there. And frankly, I'm making more off of Splash Play right now than I am off of Probably. So let's make it into a real job instead of one where I'm just jerking a dude off in an alleyway a couple times, the equivalent of revenue that we're getting. So please subscribe down below. Hit the join button as well, $4.99 a month. And you support the channel, support me doing these shows every day. All right, so we'll save BBM here. Did I advance anything in these other ones? Let's look. The 6-person draft, I auto-drafted and fell asleep on because I was trying to get a read for the 2023 draft pool. BBM, let's see. Big board, I think we were wiped out in the big board, unfortunately. These were the only teams I shared with Pete this year before we switched to our head-to-head format. So Pete and I will not be sharing in a prize this year, unfortunately. I did advance one in, I think, big board Superflex. An Allen Green Bay stack here. So survived with Josh Allen and Jordan Love. Miles Sanders, bad. Montgomery going the wrong way. Charbonnet going the wrong way. Cook going the right way. Foreman, Kenneth Gainwell, Pierce, Strong, CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Waddle, Christian Watson, Evans, Addison, Pierce down. So Addison carried this team. So I do need to get Watson back in. And I guess I need another good Waddle week as well. Irv Smith, Hayden Hurst, boy, tight end is dust. So this team probably going to hit the road in the semifinals, but glad to see one advance Superflex because as I've mentioned here, I do hate Superflex pretty meaningfully. Chihuahua got a third place. That doesn't matter. Big board. Again, we looked at that one. I don't know. I'm clicking it again. My bad. Season, though. All right. Golden team. Again, a team that was a world beater all year long, was my best team across all my portfolio. What happens when it hits the pods that it hits? We put up a 10th place score, 87.7. And this is the pod luck stuff we talk about here. You can have a great team. It just doesn't matter. Ultimately, when you get to the line, and this was fundamentally like a really good team. We had Tua, we had Tyreek, Ayuk, Evans, Dotson. Dotson sucks. Michael Thomas, not good. Rondale, Hodgins. We had Puka late. Mark Andrews goes out, though. Juwan Johnson even gives us a usable game. It doesn't matter. Got Mostert, ATN, Barkley, a running back. Running backs disappointing me. Who could have ever guessed? My golden dreams are dead, which I'm honestly okay with because winning a winner-take-all tournament is fucking impossible. Poodle 2, nothing, dead, cares. Puppy 2, nothing. I only put in one entry in the puppy, or had one entry advancing in the puppy. Barely had any in the puppy 2. Did not play many puppies this year, unfortunately. Do have one advancing in the puppy 1, though. Of course, we'll get to BBM in a moment. Lamar, Stroud, so both QBs live. That feels good. Connor, Brian Robinson, hopefully coming back. Damian Harris, Kendry Miller, 2 of my worst high-volume picks. Unfortunately, Jalen Warren gives us points. Devin Singletary, a star. A star and a god among men. Devontae Adams, Jalen Waddle, Christian Watson. So I'm advancing Watson in my lower field tournament. So that's exciting. I guess to still have some Christian Watson. Tank Dell, Mechie. Mechie, a big bust. We got Dell, and of course, he's out. Schultz. So we got the full Stroud stack. So I think... And we have Likely as well. So this team actually could hang in there. So I'd be happy to win a puppy. Obviously, BBM is where the money's at, but I would accept that. And then Chihuahua. Oh, we advanced 1 year into Chihuahua as well. Oh, a CMC team. So my only CMC team. Oh, CMC and James Cook and Achane and Roshan and Gus. Okay. I guess we're kind of live in this one, even though we have Kadarius Toney as wide receiver 5. Need to get Olave back in for sure, but how the fuck did this team survive? Just on running back power, I guess. All right. All right, go Chihuahua, go. Go Chihuahua, go. All right, BBM, let's do it. And you guys know the deal now. So as I've mentioned in previous videos before I review these teams, the key thing to know is, A, you want Chris Spags to win. Why do you want Chris Spags to win? I mean, obviously, if you have your own teams in, you want your teams to win first. Why do you want me to win? Because if I do win, I'm giving away 4 fully bankrolled entries to either BBM 5 or the DK Millie Maker, whichever you prefer, whichever state you're in if you can't play both. But that's going to be the giveaway here if I do win it. So if your teams don't win, root for Spags' teams, because we're going to do giveaways here for subscribers. First 3,000 subs will get 1 giveaway. Paying members will get another giveaway. And the other 2 we'll find out over the course of next year. But that's going to be how it goes here if I do somehow win BBM. So good time to hit that like button and subscribe, guys, is what I would say. My teams, though. This one got in by a hair's breadth. Actually, was 1 point ahead for most of last night, and then JSN put us over the top. I'm very excited to be getting this team across. Dak and Brock Purdy, Jahmyr Gibbs, James Cook, Antonio Gibson, Jalen Warren, Elijah Mitchell, Kenneth Gainwell. So here's how I'm excited to get this team across. We have Brock Purdy. We have Elijah Mitchell. We have Deebo Samuel. We have George Kittle. We have direct leverage on Christian McCaffrey in this team. So if Christian McCaffrey fails and the Niners still have success, this team is going to be in the finals, I think. If Christian McCaffrey does what he does and the Niners don't have success, the team's not going to be anywhere. But I like this team. Receivers, we have high upside guys. Brown, Deebo, Samuel, JSN had us enough points to get in here. We know Cooks can have a big day against Miami. Miami's defense tightening up a little bit. Parker's still in the mix, getting fed targets. Michael Wilson is healthy. Josh Reynolds had some catches. The most important part of the team, though, is pretty much every player is alive still. So we have a projection for everybody besides Elijah Mitchell. Hopefully Mitchell will get back in. Gibson's role was not people wanted to see last week. Chris Rodriguez worked in. So did Jonathan Williams, but Williams is hurt. So maybe we see a better role for Gibson next week if Robinson is out. The point being, though, this team barely snuck in, and it's in. So I like these teams. I also like that overall my teams, none of them are great this week. Like none of them put up 180. None of them put up 190. I'm sure that's tilting for some of you guys out there. For me, though, like I'm happy to get my teams across because we didn't really have the nuts this week, and we had enough guys live to maybe hit the nuts next week. Team 2, Jared Goff, Russell Wilson at running back, James Conner, Alvin Kamara, Rashad Penny, Devin Singletary, Gus Edwards surging, and Jeff Wilson hanging on for no reason, just coming to the party uninvited. CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Keenan Allen really need him back for this team. Jerry Jeudy, Chris Godwin. I don't think Godwin has another game like that. Marquise Brown banged up. Cardinals going the wrong way. It should be full tank mode for them. Jameson Williams surging, but not enough. And Laporta, McBride, and Jefferson is like a pretty good wide receiver, or pretty good tight end trio. So I think that's good. Running backs can be good if Kamara and Connor can carry us, and then one of these guys busts out alongside of them. But excuse me, I'm like so phlegmy today. The thing that everybody wants to hear from their YouTube streamer is how phlegmy they are in a given day, thanks to their stupid fucking child and winter on the East Coast. This team, though, I think is live as well. And the thing that I like about my teams is they all have different kind of levers going for them. So I would say that's a positive for me heading in here with my 4 finalists. This team, though, 1 QB left. Deshaun Watson, of course, dead for the year. So Jared Goff is a little bit tough to be running into, knowing as many Jared Goff teams advance as they did. But DeAndre Swift, Devon Achane, Damian Harris, once again, Roshan, Singletary, Tyjae, and Ford. So we hit a lot of good 0RB guys late. Roshan still doing some stuff. Damian Harris dead. Achane in the mix still. Swift in the mix still. A lot of ways this can work out. Devontae Adams, we snuck in as well. Amon-Ra St. Brown snuck in. Cooper, Pittman, my one Pittman still alive. Thank God. He got concussed in that game. Was on pace for a 100-plus yard day in that one before he got concussed on an unfortunate hit that got the Steelers guys suspended for the year. But Pittman, though, still in here. Ayuk still in here. Tony still in the mix. Tillman getting more in the mix. Laporta is there, and Schoonmaker is going to be the thing that kills this lineup probably. And this is my last team in the semifinals here. Lamar, Ritter out, so we are now down just to Lamar for this team at QB. That sucks. Rashad White, James Cook, though, had the nuts at running back this week. White, Cook, Singletary, Tyjae Spears, Gainwell. Hopefully one of these guys could step up because I don't think all of White, Cook, and Singletary will be there again next week necessarily. Receiver, we did get a Tyreek in, did get a Drake London in. So we got some low-owned guys in, but these guys need to step up because Addison's not going to do that again. We advanced with 4.5 points from Romeo Dobbs. So it shows you how much I hit the nuts at running back and tight end. So feeling good about this. Again, wish we had Andrews in. Hopefully Zay Flowers is one more good game in him, but this is how it goes. Let's look at the chat here because I've not been looking enough today. Oh boy, there's so much. Give me phlegm. Thank you. Thank you. That's it. Let's go, Spag Daddy. Appreciate that. All right, there we go. So Laporta has to be the chalkiest guy. I would agree. He just put so much distance at tight end this week. So Laporta going to be chalk. You really have to hope that there isn't another late tight end that's going to give upside that snuck through. But Kittle, I think like my Ferguson lineups, I feel good about. I think if Ferguson has the big week this week, I'll feel good about that. But obviously, that's going to be the big part to hope for everybody that you have one of your tight ends, not Laporta, be able to go off this week. This is a team that I'm most disappointed to not get in. The thing is, like, wasn't really close on any of the teams I didn't get in, so I can't feel that bad about it. But Fields, Goff, Montgomery, Javonte, running backs are what killed me here. Dwayne McBride, so this is a little bit earlier in the draft cycle. But running backs killed me. Diggs also did not help here, not giving me any useful points. Amon-Ra, DJ Moore busted this week as well. Rashee Rice gave me my most points at receiver, or second most points, 19.6. This team would have been live, though, going to this matchup. Really wanted to have Chicago versus Arizona this week. I do not have any besides Roshan in a couple lineups, so that was a bummer. The Lloyd draft, one that people in the chat thought should get thrown out. This one, unfortunately, came to an end this week as well. Goff, Madison giving me a 0 didn't help. My running backs just kind of fell apart when, of course, a lot of 0RB teams had their running backs really come together. Lamb, the Amon-Ra, DK Metcalf. This team would have been really nice heading into the playoffs as an extreme 0RB team. Had Laporta as well, but we just couldn't quite get there. So the good news is we were, again, 30 points away, so can't be that mad at it, but it is what it is. Anything else here? This one lost by 20. I don't think I had any that were that close. I think I got everything in I could get in. So like the run good was about as good as could be. That's for sure it. Show us your DK. Okay, relax. Random Esports is coming in and dominating the chat. It's really, but I'll do it. Anyway, this is BBM. And then again, only advance 4. I guess I shouldn't say only. Advance 4 out of 20. So expected advance rate if you have 20 entries in is like 1. So getting 4 in feels really good. And for what it's worth, for anybody who needs hope out there, last year only advanced 2 into the semifinals and did get 1 to the finals. So everybody's still live. If you have entries in, that's one thing I would say. And also for yourself, like, again, my advance rate was better than it was last year, even though it was still a little bit above average on BBM. My advance rate was higher this year, even though I guess it was really well above average for this round of the playoffs. But I think you really have to hold yourself to the standard of yourself, and especially the way you build teams, where I'm not building chalky running back teams. I'm building teams that are meant to have receivers going off, giving me 30 in the finals. And hopefully we get it in week 16 and week 17, because we did not get it in week 15. DK teams, 420, pretty awesome. That's true. If look, a lot of things aligning here. Drew Lock going off 4 out of 20. Things are looking good. BBM, I had 29 entries advanced. So you want to bitch about pod luck? I advanced 1 out of 29. My one team that advanced is going to be this one. And it's not my favorite, but we'll talk about that more in a moment. Russ, Rashad White, David Montgomery, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Sam Laporta, and Michael Mayer makes our roster here. Judy, Roshan, Pickens, Jerome Ford, Dak Prescott, Allen Robinson, Taysom Hill, Marvin Mims, Madison being out, Dylan being out, Deuce fucking Vaughn, and Jalen Tolbert. So the worst possible Dallas stack along with CeeDee Lamb and Dak. But yeah, this is my team that's advancing. I don't feel great about it. I think it's going to be wiped out in semifinals. DK, you will not be hearing me be Mr. DraftKings talking about how great their best ball product is, because I think I'm pretty much dead. The good news, though, is that if you do draft on DraftKings, they just paid out everything and did, I think, haven't rolled the pods out yet, but did pay out all of your entries at cash. So I picked up another $550 or whatever today, so that feels pretty good. Very kind to hear this one. Love you, man. Always lifting us up with positivity. I'm glad to hear that. Look, best ball is a very tilting game. I know our pal Tom Strachan did tweet about that as well, that it can feel kind of isolating, and it's important to have a community here. And of course, I'm always here to tell you guys like how it is. Sometimes if you guys build shitty teams or teams that I think are shitty, I try to help you off of that. But for this stuff, it's like you could have built the best fucking teams possible and you still get dusted. And here's an example of that. Team with 196 that could not win its pod. 196 on DraftKings with Goff, Cook, Gibbs, Amon-Ra, Devontae Parker. Admittedly, we did fall short at receiver here. Devontae Parker, DJ Moore, Sam Laporta, Devin Singletary. So he would have been looking really good heading into this week with that bear stack that I wanted so bad. We don't get there. Hubbard, Jalen Warren, Ferguson, Diggs. So Diggs really fucked us here. Jamison Williams, Bryce Young, Lockett, Freiermuth, Cooks. We had a lot of healthy guys. Only guys who are really out right now are Stevenson, Hollins, and Chenault. And I would say that Ramondre might be coming back in. We'll see. But this team would have been really good. I just hated how this went, losing to a team that he was actually only up 5 points. I think, or up. No, actually, he was up 10 points. He was at 206, and he got another 5 points from JSN. So, like, this guy had a great team. Kyron, Gibbs, hit fucking Addison, hit all the things that we're not hitting all year for the most part. He hit him this week. So, kudos to Why Not Try, but I'm very upset to be losing that team that did so well, and that's just how it goes. You can see here another second place team, another third place team, another third place team, another third place team. How far off are these? Let's find out really fast. Because that second place one, I feel like in any other league would have made it. This one was down 30. What are you going to do? Fucking everyone came through, even got Jerry Jeudy. So running back was pretty short, though. That's going to happen. This one I lost by 3. That's tilting. Ritter giving me 9 did not help out here. We had Kyron, we had Gibbs, we had Amon-Ra, we had Adams, Pittman getting hurt. So we had 2 things that really killed us here. Ritter being dog shit, Pittman getting hurt. That hurt this a lot. The rest of the team, I mean, oh, well, could have carried AR in. AR, bye-bye AR, bye-bye AR. Our baby goes like, night-night, night-night AR. So poor AR could not make it in the finals for me. But this one, incredible run bad there. Literally like one good play from Ritter, and we'd be ahead of that one. This one lost by less than 10 points. Purdy, Kyron, Gus, Waddle, McLaurin, Evans, Waller, Ridley. Of course, that touchdown from Ridley would have been the difference in this one, so that kind of sucks. Tua, Durham Smythe sucks. Pirine sucks. Tyreek not being in, Kirk not being in. Fuck. This one should have made it. It did not. So again, it happens to everybody. I put in 150. It happened to me. This is the same one I just looked at. So point being, this is how it goes on DraftKings. I got one in. I don't like the one. I don't think I'm going to win on DraftKings. So DraftKings to me, kind of dead. But kudos if you're alive here. DraftKings, tough finals as well. Over 1,000-person finals. I think a 1,200-person finals. So going to be tougher finals on BBM, but getting there just going to be just as tough, even though you're playing in 12-person pods. So good luck to you guys on DraftKings, and look for my team hitting the exit ramp pretty quick in week 16. All right. Lost at FFPC, BBT, because that damn Ridley TD that wasn't, but was. Yeah, I mean, look, Ridley didn't do a lot of favors for people this year, but it would have been nice if he could have done one for this week. Unfortunately, he did not. Hit that like button. I agree, and Ritter did poop the bed. We finally agree, Random Esports. Finally agree. Yeah, what are we going to do? All right, Drafters. Tough week on Drafters. I mean, obviously, you're seeing James Cook and Kyron and Gus, so, like, it doesn't look that bad. But Josh Allen given 16.2 sucked. Wide receivers were awful for me. No Tyreek. Pittman getting hurt. Devontae did not get there. Of course, did hit his under on the prop betting, so that looked good for probably. But that's a positive. Besides that, though, notes like no receivers over 15 points. We're going to lose a little bit of what we're doing here on Drafters. Still top 100, though. As you can see, 88th place. But we are now 130 points-ish, 125 points behind first place. So going to be a little bit of an uphill battle to get there. Still think this team is live for the most part, but we do need to see Tyreek, Devontae, Pittman, Zay consolidate, because now Sky Moore is out for the rest of the regular season. Pierce, useless. Hyatt, mostly useless. Marshall, not even active, so that kind of sucks. All right, and there we go. And top team on Drafters, so we actually can see that here. Number 1 right now, Baker. Baker got this guy number 1. It's pretty crazy to see. Kamar and Rashad White, not the most exemplary running back room, but he's getting there with that. Amon-Ra, Debo, fairly loaded wide receiver room here. Definitely should have a shot to hold on. Back of the wide receiver room is dog shit. Paris Campbell, Tank Dell, Justin Ross. That's not great. Palmer, Freiermuth, Laporta, McBride. This is the number 1 team. Does this team feel like a number 1 team to you? I don't know. I think it just speaks again to drafting on Drafters and the importance of just getting in some entries on the tournaments out there that are a little bit less combed, a little bit less filled with sharps. Those are the things that I would say for sure. My field team making a little bit of a run here into at least the top 15,000, but this is useless. The rest of the Drafters portfolio, I feel like kind of dead, but would be happy to have a top 100 finisher. Obviously be happy to have a top 10 finisher, but I think we're a little bit blocked from getting the top 10 just based on my shitty wide receivers on that one. Let's look at the chats again. If you guys have anything else you want to drop in here, I know you guys have been ruminating amongst yourselves. 1 of 18 on DK. You got as many as me. That's all we can ever say. If you want to win this week, bet everybody in the semifinals teams on the under. Good call by Chris there. Definitely a way to hedge for sure. If you really want to try to get the EV out of your lineups, I personally am just going to let mine ride. I will say for the personal experience from last year, I did try DFS to get leverage on players I didn't have, and that just didn't work out well at all for me. Maybe I did it the wrong way, but I still think that's one where like just play your normal DFS, try to play your normal betting stuff. Unless you're like in the finals and it's like you're sweating out that last one and then you want to hedge and make a bet against something that you need to win. That's the one thing I would say maybe you could do a little bit to try to squeeze some EV out of your entry, but I wouldn't do it until like the cards are set and you're like, you know where things are going, because I think you can fuck that up worse and cost yourself more money, and that's definitely what I did for myself last year. Drafters climbed from 115 to 115. I was like, it climbed from 115 to 350. That wouldn't be that good. 1 out of 7 BBM. Hey, having a bullet live is all you need. So that's it, guys. That's best ball. So I don't know what the lessons are here. The lessons are, well, we saw with Tyreek firsthand that you basically do need to really like have the guy who's advancing you continue to advance you. Otherwise, you're fucked. So if you snuck any Tyreek in, obviously you saw I snuck in the one. That feels pretty good. I'll give the plug one more time, by the way, because now we are on the home stretch of this, and I do need to promote it. If I do win DK, which if I win DK or if I win Basketball Mania 4, we'll be comping 4 fully bankrolled entries, either BBM 5 or DraftKings Millie Maker. That is still going to be the promise here on Splash Play because I care and I love best ball. Like that's why the only reason I show up every day, like obviously I want to build this channel up. I want it to be something meaningful, but I love this process and I love how this goes. And frankly, like the anxiety sweats from this, there's nothing else. Like I was up till 2 a.m., but doing some work, but then also looking at my teams in bed, just like what are we doing here? Is there any stat correction that's going to fuck me last minute? So I get it. Like I'm on the same page with you guys. And I promise as long as you are here on Splash Play, you're going to be dealing with somebody who puts in a lot of work to do this stuff, but also thinks the same way as you do, wants the same joys as you get. And BBM is one of the greatest joys. If any of us can take it down, obviously I'm hoping I do, but if you guys do as well, I'm rooting for you guys as well. Like, but not in my pods if you can. Like if you're gonna win BBM, do it in somebody else's pod. That's what I'm gonna ask from all of you guys. Also, what I'm gonna ask is to please subscribe down below. Please hit the like button. Please leave a comment if you're watching after the fact for Splash Play on the march here, trying to grow every day. So I appreciate all of your subs, all of your likes. It's really been meaningful to see it for me, and I do appreciate it on here. And of course, go check out Probably. Another winning day on Probably yesterday, even though the Knicks kind of hurt the EV a little bit at the end, but still finished up just shy of 1 unit. So that's how it goes at Probably. Mathematically profitable bets every day. And of course, I do a video giving a free preview of the bets, but you can get the product for yourself 50% off with promo code SPLASH. And that means you're basically paying under $10 a month for all of our pregame data at probably.com. And again, like this is how I paid for my DK best ball entries, was just hitting bets in the offseason when we were still developing our product. Now our product is literally 1,000,000 times better. So I would say really trying to get in there now. You're going to win money. Like I hate to like promise that, but that's what mathematically profitable betting is. The bigger the sample size you get in is of taking advantage of inefficient probabilities, the more you're going to win. So like really, if you're in a legal betting state, even if you're not, I just want to get some good things for prize picks or for underdog, just look for things over 55% probability. That's how it goes. But check it out at probably.com. That is my baby. If you want to support Splash Play, another way to do so would be to subscribe to Probably right now and save 50% with promo code SPLASH. And of course, I'll be back tomorrow. Playoff best ball marches on here. So if you want to do some playoff best ball, going to hit a few drafts of that tomorrow on stream as well. And then Showdown Thursday, main slate. What I guess we'll have to do a lot of shit on Friday because there's a bunch of slates. But we're going to keep going on here on Splash Play. No time off. Even I think might even do a Christmas Day stream. We'll find out how that goes. But appreciate all you guys being here with me, and I'll be back tomorrow for more. So I'll see you guys then. If you advance, good luck, and shouts to the Squirt Squad. Here's your new credits, new names on there. A lot of names on there now, so let's make it so these credits get uncomfortably filled with names if we can. Hit that join button down below. I'll be back with you guys tomorrow for more, so I'll see you then. And of course, good luck in whatever. Good luck in NBA DFS. I don't know. Bye.